All right, so is Bitcoin going to crash one more time to the downside before we're going to see a massive move here to the upside? Well, what you can see right over here is the funding rate and the RSI indicator. And if I go here to the daily time frame, together here with my personal indicator called the Team Underground Magic RSI bands, we can see that the Bitcoin price pretty much throughout this whole entire move to the upside has always pounced back here to that daily RSI oversold before resuming here its move to the upside, together over here with negative funding rates. So you can see right over here, crash to the downside, negative funding rate, RSI here, right over here, oversold on the daily. This was the bottom. We saw it also right over here during this crash. Now, so far, we are again in a sideways period, and every single time that we've kind of gone through a sideways period here for the last couple of basically months, and I'd say the last 2 years here, we always reset it back here to the daily oversold. So currently that is sitting here quite nicely here around 100 and, well, it's pretty much about 100,000 US dollar over here. So we could be potentially looking here at one more spike here to the downside, kind of taking out right over here this low, and then a continuation to the upside. Currently, I am right over here in a long position. I have moved my stop loss, as you guys can see, right over here, far away from this actual liquidation wick. And I also still have a lot of money left here as well here on my account that I can actually use to pull back right over here and buy more Bitcoin as well if we're going to be dipping. So I'm kind of waiting for this potentially play out, and that is still going to be the major danger right over here, what we can see here with the Bitcoin price. That even though I'd say I am bullish, and you know, of course the title might be bearish and things like that, I am quite bullish still on the Bitcoin price. I do think that this whole crash to the downside cleaned up a lot of these longs, and that's definitely a very nice position. I mean, with a very nice wick here right over here below these lows here. And I think generally speaking, I mean, we still have the negative funding rate. I don't really see how this is going to be the start of a bigger correction to the downside. But if we are going to be going a little bit lower, then something we're going to have to watch out for is Bitcoin going here to about 100,000 US dollar and then spiking here further to the upside. So that's why I have put my stop loss here right over here, far below this exact level. And I can also be adding here right over here to my position. So I would say, if the question, and you're looking maybe at the title, is Bitcoin still going to crash? If it is going to crash and it's going to go to the daily, then it's probably going to reset there and then have a move like that to the upside. But I think that this whole crash to the downside was because of the tariffs, because people were worried about the new tariff war. We saw the stock market moving to the downside. I mean, we've kind of had a big rally on gold as well, kind of moving away some attention from Bitcoin. But I think next week, when all of it kind of clears up, I think it is going to be here moving towards the upside. And that is also why I've been starting to build over here a long position. So anyway, going very quickly here, looking here at the gold chart, what we can see is gold absolutely beautifully going here to the upside. We can see the Bitcoin price here, again, having a massive delay. We can basically see in the last 2 years here, we've seen the Bitcoin price and the gold price being pretty much exactly one-to-one correlated. But so far, we're seeing that Bitcoin is massively staying behind. We can actually kind of see that it appeared like Bitcoin was trying to catch up with this kind of move here to the upside. And I'm going to kind of zoom in here a little bit. You can see the Bitcoin was kind of trying to catch up here. But what kind of happened is that we, of course, got a tariff thingy going on with the president, and that's why we had this correction to the downside. And we can see this massive divergence here between gold and the Bitcoin price. And I think eventually, again, Bitcoin is probably going to be catching up right over here to this level. So I still also have my Ethereum trade here on the other exchange as well, on the BTCC exchange, which I'm also hodling here as well. Still probably up like 300,000 US dollar. I haven't checked it actually, but it's still fine. It's on a very low level. So I have this position and I have the trade on BTCC open as well. So I've kind of a dual position here to kind of play this move here to the upside. And so again, I am pretty much bullish here. Like next week is going to be very, very bullish. But if we are going to start next week kind of bearish, I think it's probably going to go here below this low. But I think that should be sufficient as well to set the bottom here. Anything lower like that, I don't really see that happening here with negative funding rate. So if you do actually also want to see any of my future trades as well in the future, or extra analysis, if you go here to my website and then just join the VIP Telegram, it's completely for free to join. All you have to do is just sign up on one of these exchanges over here, deposit and trade, and then submit your user ID over here. And then you can join here the private channel. And if you also want to find out right over here the funding rate indicator as well, you could just go here to the free indicators and just get here all of the free indicators. And I got lots of other stuff, and I even got some Bitcoin games here on my website as well. Go check out the website here, teamundergroundtrading.com, for all that information. Now, let's dive here into the next topic very quickly. We're going to be talking here about MetaPlanet here. MetaPlanet, I met the CEO, as you guys know here, when they started the company, didn't invest in the company. This was all the way back here in May 2024. The company is still up 10x since that. But it was up here in the summer here, very, very high. It was up almost, would it be a 50x or something along those lines? And I didn't buy, but it's of course a Bitcoin strategy company similar to MicroStrategy. And I kind of had the feeling that I wasn't very certain about the whole idea. And we've kind of seen that, yes, it was kind of a bubble. I felt very bad when it went up here. I thought like I should have bought. It could have been kind of like almost like an insider buying it. But I didn't, and now I'm kind of looking at this, and it's kind of like, yeah, a lot of people got completely wrecked here on the top. Now, why is this happening? So I have these Bitcoin strategy companies like MicroStrategy and MetaPlanet and some other companies, and it was like a huge thing, like people that wanted to make more Bitcoin, they would buy these strategy companies, and these companies would sell their stocks and buy more Bitcoin, and it was a good play at first. But what we're kind of seeing right now is that actually the mining companies, they're kind of taking over. And you might say, why are the mining companies taking over? Why are the mining companies here moving to the upside? Well, there's a very important reason for this, and it's going to blow your mind. But I don't think a lot of people have been talking about this, but these mining companies are actually pivoting to AI. And this is going to be extremely hyper bullish for the Bitcoin price in ways people do not understand yet. So basically, this is probably going to get rid of a lot of the sell pressure that we have on the Bitcoin price. And it's very, very simple. So anyway, we have these basically Bitcoin mining companies, and what they're doing is they're having all these GPUs, all this data, all this hardware, and they're mining to protect the Bitcoin network. We all know the whole story. They're protecting the network, they're accepting transactions, verifying transactions, all this kind of stuff. And it requires a lot of energy, it requires a lot of infrastructure. And what we're seeing right now is because of the AI hype, a lot of these Bitcoin mining companies are now pivoting to AI. So they're not just going to mine Bitcoin, but they're now also going to start focusing on AI cloud mining. So basically what they're going to have to do is they're basically going to provide kind of tools for these AI companies to train their data, for example, on. And what that's going to mean is that these mining companies, they're in a very good position right now because they have the land, they have the knowledge, they have the energy, they have basically everything lined up to pivot not only to AI, but also keep their Bitcoin business alive. Now, why is it going to be so good? You say, like, well, why is it important? Okay, these mining companies are growing, they're doing something else. Why is that important? Is because what's going to happen is these Bitcoin mining companies, they don't have to sell their Bitcoin anymore. They have enough cash flow from their AI. They get enough investments from AI investors, Nvidia, whatever, to build out their AI adventure, that they can just keep running their Bitcoin mining equipment on the side and just hodl their Bitcoin, and don't need to sell it. So in the past, if you had these Bitcoin mining companies that were only specifically focused on Bitcoin, is what you would get is they would, of course, spend a lot of energy trying to mine these Bitcoins, but they then immediately have to sell those Bitcoins in order to fund their operations. But now if they get enough cash flow from other operations and they can actually use their knowledge, their land, their energy for other operations to get a much stronger cash flow from that and continue their Bitcoin mining business, they can just keep hodling the Bitcoin. They don't necessarily just have to keep selling those Bitcoin to keep their operations going. They can just get investments from other AI companies that are now extremely high in valuation. So this is going to be very, very bullish to the Bitcoin price, and I hope you're with me, but we have proof for this. We have proof on why this theory is going to play out, and that is that after every halving, you can see a couple months after that, we have this massive move to the upside. Every single time. The Bitcoin cycles happen after the halving. We notice every single time that we get a halving, the Bitcoin price has these massive rallies to the upside. Now, why is that? It's because these mining companies, their reward gets slashed in half, so they can sell half of the Bitcoin that they could do before the halving. And so again, these people are constantly selling their Bitcoin, constantly selling into the market, constantly trying to fund their operations. And so what happens after halving is they have less Bitcoin to sell, there's less sell pressure on the market, and then the price spikes to the upside. Bitcoin hodlers don't really sell their Bitcoin because they're ideologically they believe in the Bitcoin price. They don't have, they don't have any incentive to sell their Bitcoin. The only people that have an incentive to sell are the miners. But now that incentive is being taken away from them because they're pivoting to AI. And so they have enough investments, they can get probably enough cash flow from that business alone that they could just keep their Bitcoin. Because these Bitcoin miners are probably also, in terms of ideology, they're probably also very convinced that Bitcoin is, going to be the next thing. They're probably more convinced than the average hodler, because in order to set up a mining operations, you have to be really convinced in the Bitcoin market. So you have these Bitcoin maximalists, which are basically going to hold these massive AI cloud mining operations. They're going to make massive cash flow from that. They're going to get massive investments. And then they basically have their Bitcoin mining that just continues on the background. And they just hold the Bitcoin. And then there's no sell pressure. This whole thing could basically spark a new halving. Because you're basically going to have, again, decreased selling pressure on the Bitcoin price. That could pump the Bitcoin price to much higher levels. So this is going to be very interesting. Not a lot of people are talking about this. But we are going to know from after the halving, we have this massive move to the upside. So let's see if this is going to be like a fifth halving in a sense, because the Bitcoin miners are not going to have to be forced to sell their Bitcoin, then yeah, be ready for a big spike on the Bitcoin price. And then if that's going to spike the Bitcoin price, these miner companies are only going to appreciate more. And it's going to draw more attention to these companies. And that's going to lower the incentives for them to sell even more. So that's going to be very interesting. So let's see what's going to be happening. So this, people start realizing this. This could have really pumped the Bitcoin price quite strongly to the upside. So let's see. Now, again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a random guy on the internet. So don't take my advice, as always. But that's just how I see it. So anyway, I'm long. So let's see what's going to happen next week. If we're going to crash, we're going to go to the daily, say $100,000 US, probably going to be the lowest I will see it going. And if we don't, then this was the end. And I'm going to start building this position further. So again, if you want to join the VIP Telegram, check out the link here in the description. Just go to my website and join it. And I'll see you guys here in my next video. Bye-bye.